Okay, so we are recording. We're going to record this lesson. So let me show you first. Here's what we're going to need, okay? Necesitamos 3 o 4 patatas. Mis patatas son muy pequeñas. My potatoes are super small. So I might need 3 or 4, depending, okay? Yo voy a usar, I'm going to use a super small frying pan. This one's not clean because I'm just going to take a, 1 second. I'm going to take a paper towel. I'm just going to clean it out this way. Okay. And so this is the size I'm using. It's a small frying pan because I find it easier to maneuver and manage, okay? That way I know that if I'm putting 4 patatas, 4 potatoes in here, like I might even do a 5th potato, okay? Because these will be cut up, okay? So I'm gonna show you how I want them cut. But what I've done, don't do that. But what I've done is I've also prepared some potatoes ahead of time because I knew that the potatoes are going to take like 10 to 15 minutes to cook. That's going to suck up all of our class time. So I'm going to show you how to do everything. And then I'm going to let my potatoes cook, okay? While I then show you how to make the tortilla española. So the first thing I want to show you is the tortilla española. So I'm going to share my screen because I want all of you guys to be super clear what we're making. So the tortilla española is not anything like the tortilla in Mexico. It's like an egg omelet, but it's eggs and potatoes, okay? With a little bit of cebolla, onions. So this is what we are making, okay? So we need patatas, potatoes, and we need to cut them up small enough, but not too small because what we don't want is like fried, like French fries in our patata, in our tortilla española, okay? We are gonna need an onion. I like to do the sweet onions because it adds a really nice flavor. If all you have are the other yellow onions that have that dark yellow skin on them, that's fine too. If you only have a red onion, okay. It's gonna taste slightly different if it's not the sweet onion. So I'm gonna I cut my onion in half, en mitad, and then I cut the half in half again, so it's a 1/4 of an onion. Again, remembering that I'm using a small pan, so if I put everything in here, it should fit pretty nicely, and I think that's about what I need, okay? Now, I'm going to chop up my patatas, my potatoes, but while I do this, I'm going to turn on my oil. Now, if you notice, I have little bits of onion in here because I had a class this morning, okay? And I've already made some potatoes. But I'm gonna turn on my oil to about medium low, okay? I don't want it to get too hot too quickly, but I do want it to be warm before I put things in. Now, what kind of oil do I use? So a lot of people in Spain will use olive oil. But one of the things about olive oil is that if it gets too hot, there's a temperature that olive oil goes to before it turns rancid. Rancid means it turns bad, okay? Actually bad for your health. So the best oils to use are the oils that will heat up to a high degree of heat. So grapeseed oil is one, canola oil is another, vegetable oil, but I don't like vegetable oil. So I'll use also avocado oil, but avocado oil tends to leave a flavor in what you prepare. So grapeseed oil, there's no flavor to it, okay? And it will burn at a higher temperature than olive oil. So this is what I use. So I fill up my pan. Now, if you notice, this pan is a bigger one, okay? So I usually cook a bunch of potatoes in a bigger one, but I could cook my 3 potatoes or 4 potatoes and my onions in this one. And then when I'm ready to make the tortilla, then I have a clean one ready to go. So I'm going to cut my patatas. I'm going to take a potato And I'm going to cut it. If it's this big, I'm going to cut it 3 times. So I go 1, 2, 3. Actually, no, sorry. 4 times, and then take the end off. So the end here, in French, we call le nez de sorcière, the witch's nose on bread and stuff like that. So I'm going to put this over here. And then I'm going to stack my patatas in a nice little neat stack, and I'm going to cut it lengthwise. Do you see how it's bigger? In 2. 1, 2. Okay, and then I flip it around. So I'm going to cut straight through the middle. And now I have a piece of patata that looks like this. Okay, so it's a small piece. I'm putting it aside. I'm going to put my little end pieces away. So I take my end piece off. If I need them, I can use them, but I feel like these are cleaner. So this one I only cut 3 times. I went 1, 2, 3 after I cut off the ends. I do 1, 2, and then I flip it around. Oopsie. And then I cut halfway. That gives me the right size, okay? Cut off the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then oops. And then my end, okay? And again, because we have class right now, I don't want to be playing my loud music, but I would be playing really loud music in Spanish. So I would do this, cut it twice, and then turn it around, cut it halfway again. It doesn't have to be perfect. Take the end off. 1, 2, 3, and off. And again, you don't have to take the ends off. I don't know why I do. I just do. But if I need them, I'll put them in. And then 1, 2. And then I finish cutting like this. This was a small one, so I'm just cutting it. So here is my pile of patatas, okay, potatoes. Then I take my onion. I have to take this part off. So I'm going to lay it flat on my cutting board, and I'm just going to cut through to take off the end piece. And then this easily allows me to peel off that top layer. And now I have a clean, beautiful sweet onion. I'm going to cut it into little pieces. So just cut it like this. Can be sloppy. And then I cut it again. 1, 2. Cut it down the middle. 1, 2, 3. Being very careful. I don't want my onions to be super big. So I give them kind of like wherever the big pieces are, and I cut them. So now I have my patatas, my potatoes, and my onions. So now, because I have turned on my oil, it's on medium low, so it shouldn't be super hot, but I want to make sure that it's not super hot. Oopsie. Okay, so I'm going to add in one of my potatoes, patatas, and see what happens to it. So nothing's happening. It needs to be a little bit, if it doesn't bubble around it, it's not hot enough. So I'm going to turn it up between medium and medium low. And then I'm going to add all of the ingredients in. Okay, so I'm going to add my ingredients. I can use my hands. If they're clean, they're usually clean, or I can use my knife. So if I use my knife, I'm slowly going to pour everything in. I can start seeing some bubbles form around the onions, las cebollas, which is good because it means that the olive oil is getting warmed up. Not the olive oil. I have a little piece of the grapeseed oil, okay? And I like to use like a metal spoon that's slotted to stir and make sure that all of the potatoes and the onions are submerged. They're down underneath the oil, okay? You don't want anything above the oil because it's not going to cook. So if you want to know how much oil to put in, I put in about half of my frying pan. Now, if I'm using this small frying pan, I put about half, like up to the halfway point. But your true test is that everything fits underneath the oil. Now, it's not hot enough, so I'm just going to turn it up for a little bit to get heated, but we don't want to keep it at a high temperature. Otherwise, we'll create French fries, and that's not what goes inside a Spanish tortilla. So I will add a tiny bit of sal. I'm gonna just add like 1 turn, okay? And then this cooks for about 10 a 15 minutos. So about 10 to 15 minutes, it'll cook. As I start to see, do you see the little bubbles coming up? As I start to see the little bubbles, I want to watch it because I don't want it to get too hot. And then I'll turn, once your oil gets hot, then you can turn it down because it stays hot, okay? So that's the tomato and onion part. They just cook for 10 to 15 minutes-ish. You want them to be super duper soft. So I have cooked some potatoes and some onions. Do you see how they're not French fries? They're soft. And so if I take one of these, you can see it's not crispy or anything, it's soft. It just kind of tears apart. Do you see how it's soft like this? That's how you want them. And then the onion is like cooked like that. So it's not crispy onion rings or crispy potatoes. They're soft and mushy. So I can hear in the background, I can hear things bubbling. So do you see how it's bubbling? Do you see from this side? So it's a little too hot. I'm going to turn it down between that medium low and medium, but closer to the medium low. And I'm just going to let that cook. When they are cooked, and the reason that I wanted to cook some ahead of time was because I knew we weren't going to have time to watch potatoes and onions cook. So they're cooked. We're going to pretend we've advanced the video. So my potatoes, my patatas y cebolla are cooked. I have far too many potatoes to fit in my tiny little pan, okay? So I'm just going to put this aside for right now. And I'm going to focus on my eggs, los huevos. Okay, so what you need for the eggs for a small pan like this is about 3 to 4. I tend to feel like it's better to have 4 eggs, okay? If you don't want to add 4 complete eggs, you can do 3 complete eggs and then the egg whites of a 4th if you don't want too many yolks. Some people don't like a lot of yolks in their patata, in their Spanish tortilla. It's whatever you want. So I'm going to break my first egg, okay? And I put it down in there. And then I take my second one, el segundo, okay? And here's my third. Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking I can have 1 more for my pan. So I figured, I'm just gonna add the egg white. So I crack it, then I break it, and I put the yolk on one side. And then I make sure this side is empty, and I put a little bit of the egg yolk right there on the tip and let that egg white fall. Do you see that? So now I basically just have an egg yolk. Do you see that? And so I'm just going to put this aside back inside of my little egg carton. Do you see it? Oops, right there. Okay. I'm checking on my potatoes, mis patatas. Do you guys see them bubbling now? Okay. So you want to stir that every now and then. Okay. I'm going to just do a quick little stir. Okay. Okay. So now, could you use a whisk? You could use a whisk to mix the eggs. Sometimes I can't find my whisks. I'm not going to stress about, do I have my whisk or do I not have it? Because the best thing for me is the good old-fashioned tenedor, fork, okay? So before I do this, I'm going to add 1 or 2 turns of my salt. 1, 2, okay? And then I'm going to batir. I'm going to mix it like this. I'm just stirring and mixing so that all the yolk and the egg whites get mixed together. If you stopped here, that would be fine. It doesn't matter, okay? Okay, so now this is mixed. Now I'm ready to add my potatoes and my egg mixture. How much do I add? So here's the thing. If you put in 3 potatoes, adding all of them. If you put in 4, you'll probably add all of them, but you want to make sure that you have a little bit more egg than you do potatoes, okay? You don't want all potatoes. Just checking, I'm going to turn this down to medium low. So I'm going to start with my big spoon, and this is like a tablespoon and a bit. So it's a big, heaping, huge tablespoon. And I'm going to take a huge, heaping, huge tablespoon and put it in. So if you see, I've got way more egg than I do potatoes. I need more potatoes. So I'm going to add a second very huge heaping tablespoon of potatoes and onions. Okay, again, just way more eggs than potatoes. So I'm adding another one, a third one. Now I have more than 3 potatoes in here because I just made a whole bunch of potatoes. So this is probably about 3 or 4 potatoes. Okay, so now you can see that we've got a lot more egg than potatoes. I like my tortilla española with a little bit more potato in it. So I'm going to add, so it's kind of like you have to figure out what you like. So if you make this a lot, you're going to realize what you like the best. So, right, Alicia? Have you ever made one?
No.
Oh, it's, whoops. So you've never made one, but has your mom made one? She's texting. So I'm going to add just a little bit more patatas, potatoes, because I like potatoes. Yeah, so Alicia's mom makes them. So now I've got my potatoes, my eggs, and my cebolla, my onion, and I'm just going to kind of mix it all. Okay, so you see how there's kind of more egg than potatoes and onions. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 2 teaspoons of my oil that's hot. Now remember, I won't start this until my potatoes and my onions are cooked and cooled. And when you take your potatoes and onions, I can see some of my onions are turning brown here. So I'm going to turn them off, and they're going to remain there for about 10 minutes. They're going to continue cooking even though my heat is off. Okay, but I'm going to take about 2 teaspoons of this hot oil and transfer it into this pan that I'm going to make the tortilla in. Okay, so I'm going to bring the pan close to this hot oil. And again, you want your parents to be helping you with this because hot oil is not anything that you want to mess with. So I take a teaspoon of hot oil and I just transfer it into here. That's not enough. I need another teaspoon. Okay, and I throw another teaspoon in here. So you'll notice that there's like a cloud. Do you see the cloudiness of that oil? Because it's got potatoes and it's got the flavor of the potatoes and the onions. So I'm going to turn this on to about medium-ish. Okay, and I'm going to let this oil reheat, but I'm going to make sure to spread it out evenly at the bottom. See how I'm just shaking it? And I'm just gently shaking it. So now it's covering the bottom. So I'm going to put my computadora, my computer right here. This is not a perfect science. Do you guys see this now? Okay. Okay, great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add my potato and egg mixture into here while this is heating on medium. And I'm going to just toss it in like this. Now you might see some oil that we put at the bottom of the pan come up to the top, and it's okay. So I'm going to put this in here and I'm starting to heat it up so nothing is happening around the edges. Okay, absolutely nothing is happening yet. Now I'm starting to see some white here. Do you guys see any of the white along the edges here? So it's starting to cook my egg. And I can move this around a little bit. Okay, I can like do this if I want. There's plenty of oil down below, so it's not gonna stick. Okay, and it's gonna start, you're gonna start to see this white rim form around the pan. Okay, so my potatoes have finished bubbling. They're still cooking even though my heat is off. Okay, so now I'm starting to see, do you guys see the white edges? It's a little bit of a white edge around. That's the egg that's cooking. So I've got all of this liquid egg that's sitting on the top. I want to bring it down underneath so that it'll cook. So I kind of make a little gap on the sides, and some of the top part of the egg will seep down. And that way, and I might even want to use my handle to get some of this top part of the egg down underneath. And I'm kind of just pushing the egg down on the side. Now you're starting to see it kind of bubble a little bit. I want to get some of this egg liquid over to the side. So I lift my handle, take my spoon, push it down, and the egg goes down. So do you see how I'm slowly starting to get some of this liquid, this egg in the middle, down underneath the tortilla? Okay, so that everything cooks. I'm gonna turn my heat down a bit because it's getting hot. I don't wanna burn my tortilla either at the bottom because it's cooking underneath. None of this top part is really cooking. It doesn't get cooked until we flip our tortilla. Okay, so do you guys see the white? Give me a thumbs up if you see the white part surrounding it. And look what I can do. I can move, I can shake it, and you see how my whole tortilla is moving, which means that I have enough oil underneath, it's not sticking. You definitely need a non-stick pan for this. Do not try this with a pan that's not non-stick. Now, I want to see how my tortilla is doing underneath. I don't want to brown it too much. Do you guys see a little bit of brown here? This is kind of what we want to start seeing. So you can lift it up and check underneath. It's pretty brown underneath. So now comes the fun part of flipping it. How do you flip it? Well, Senora Hurley, I used to have these perfect plates that they were round and I would fit them on top. Now I don't have them anymore. So I am going to use this cutting board. I'm going to lay it flat on top. Do you see that? I'm going to put my hand down really, really hard, take the handle and flip it. Do you see how I did that? Oopsie, I flipped it. Okay? So I lift this up and I have my tortilla on top of my pan. Underneath this is a bunch of like gooey, mushy egg stuff. So it's going to slide off into my pan. So watch this. Oopsie. Ready? Here we go. It's going to slide off. Ready? I'm sliding it. And you do it ever so gently and then push down any sides that may have lifted up. Do you see how that just slid right off? And I can shake it a bit to flatten it out. And here is all my egg gunk. So I'm going to let this sit and cook underneath. I'm going to come over here. You guys with me still? And I'm going to wash this off because I need this to use this again. Oops, the sun is in the way. So I'm going to use this again. Okay, so I'm going to wash off this egg really well on jabón with soap. Okay, meanwhile, my potatoes and onions were turned off. If I was making another one, I'm letting them sit there. I'm actually just, my tortilla's cooking now the other side, and I'm just cleaning off this cutting board. So I'm putting it here. Now I'm going back to my tortilla. So how do I see how it's cooking underneath? Do you remember? We can lift it up. Now I had turned down the stove, so I'm taking a peek. I'm lifting it up and taking a peek. Oh, it looks so delicious. Oh my goodness. So you take a peek and you want it to look like this color brown, okay? And so you take a peek, you lift it up and take a peek. It's close, super close. So when I know that I'm super duper close, what I like to do is I like to take 2 little pieces of paper towel and I put them down on my cutting board because that's gonna go on top of this omelet. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna turn off my oven. It's finished. Okay, I can smell it. And I'm gonna take my cutting board and I'm gonna take it with both hands and flip it upside down so that my paper towel is here. I put my hand on it really hard and then I flip it. Okay, it's flipped. I lift my pan off and I have my tortilla. Ta-da! Does that look like a tortilla that you've seen before in Spain, Alicia? Give me a thumbs up. Looks pretty delicious, right? Okay, so let me tell you about the Spanish tortilla. So in Spain, when you go, if you ever travel to Spain, the Spanish tortilla can be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, okay? You can have it at all times of the day. Normally, when you're in a family home, if kids are not having that sliced meat that they have, mom or grandma might make a delicious tortilla first thing in the morning and you wake up smelling that smell. Like, you guys can't smell this, but it smells so delicious. And they cut it in pieces of pies, like pie slices. And you can have a tortilla on a couple of pieces of French bread in the morning with like a hot chocolate. It's delicious. If you're out and about and you want to have lunch, you can stop off. They have places like Subway, but they're the Spanish Subway. And the Spanish Subways don't sell subs. They sell sandwiches with tortillas. So you can get, right, Alicia, you can get a sandwich with a big slice of tortilla in the middle of it. Sometimes they'll put mayonesa on it or whatever. And it's the most delicious lunch ever. If you go at night with your friends, a lot of high school students will do this. They go and meet their friends at a little cafe or restaurant and they'll have tapas. And tapas are little small meals. So this is one tapa. So if you were to go with your friends, you might order like a Spanish tortilla as a tapa. You might order some warmed almonds. You might order some olives. You might order some gambas al ajillo. You might order a bunch of different plates. And then it's meant to be shared with all of your friends. So tapas are a bunch of little plates that you share with your friends. So this is one that you would have if you had like 4 or 5 friends with you, you'd cut it up and you'd each get a piece of tortilla. And you'd have some olives on the side and some almonds and whatever else you ordered, okay? So this is it. This is the Spanish tortilla. So it is a little complex to make. And I would recommend that you have a mom or dad supervise and help you with all this hot oil. But if you can really master it, I was taught when I lived in Spain, I met this girl and we became really good friends and she taught me how to make it and I've been making it ever since and I love it. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the videos.